Pizzaversi Studios presents a special message from the Royal Humpty Dumpty Restoration Authority. Has your family recently experienced catastrophic egg-related structural failure? Did your loved one fall off a suspiciously high wall during emotionally unstable times? Do you currently have 160 grown men standing around yelling, "Lift harder, Gerald"? Well, good news. The Royal Humpty Dumpty Restoration Authority is here to help. For centuries, England's finest unqualified men have been gathering around shattered situations pretending confidence while accomplishing absolutely nothing. And now you can join them. At RHDRA, our professionally confused restoration specialists offer emergency wall-side emotional support, Royal horse transportation, community screaming, aggressive pointing, medieval glue buckets, 14 monks whispering "Dear God" in Latin, one guy named Thomas who swears he used to fix pottery. Still not convinced? Listen to these satisfied customers. Deb Roberts. They arrived within minutes, stared at the pieces for 3 hours, blamed France and left. Nunzio the Wild. I lost everything, but at least the king sent horses. Lisa Wigger. They told us restoration was possible. It absolutely was not. Here at the Royal Humpty Dumpty Restoration Authority, we believe no disaster is too large to stand around awkwardly discussing while accomplishing nothing whatsoever. Because when irreversible collapse strikes, you deserve the illusion of support. The Royal Humpty Dumpty Restoration Authority is not responsible for emotional devastation, existential collapse, tavern-related injuries, broken reputations, irreversible trauma, shattered eggs, shattered monarchies, shattered marriages, shattered economies, or Gerald dropping the bucket again. Horses do not provide medical care. Results may vary depending on gravity. The Royal Humpty Dumpty Restoration Authority, because sometimes the kingdom has absolutely no idea what it's doing. Disclaimer. The following documentary contains discussions of alcoholism, historical misery, collapsing social systems, British taverns that probably smelled like wet boots and despair, and nursery rhymes that somehow became acceptable material for toddlers. No eggs were psychologically evaluated during the making of this documentary. No royal horses successfully repaired emotional damage. Any viewers currently realizing their childhood songs were secretly coded, trauma stories are encouraged to sit quietly for a moment and reconsider why Victorian society thought terrifying children counted as entertainment. Pizzaverse Studios does not create existential dread. We simply excavate it from old nursery books like caffeinated archaeologists with emotional problems. And remember, fairy tales and nursery rhymes were written to warn you, not comfort you. Now let's get into it.
Pizzaverse Studios presents a Palermo Productions original, Humpty Dumpty. The nursery rhyme that hid a human collapse. Written by Bambi Palermo. Narrated by Vincent Diprio. You know the words, every child does. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Simple. Harmless. Cute. Except it isn't. Because beneath those 4 innocent lines sits one of the darkest ideas ever hidden inside children's folklore. Some things break permanently, and humanity absolutely cannot handle that truth. That's why generation after generation kept rewriting the story. Not because people enjoy accuracy. God forbid. No. People rewrote Humpty Dumpty because the original meaning was too ugly to sit comfortably beside a child's bed at night. This wasn't originally about an egg. It wasn't about a cannon. It wasn't about Richard III. It wasn't about secret Civil War codes. That's Internet History Channel nonsense, cooked up centuries later by people who looked at a depressing nursery rhyme and thought, you know what this needs? Artillery. The real story is worse. The original Humpty Dumpty was a symbol of human ruin, alcoholism, collapse, helplessness, social decay. A broken man sitting in the filth of Restoration England, while everybody around him slowly realized there was nothing left to save. And somehow, we turned that into baby room wallpaper. Because humanity is incredible at emotional denial. Before the egg. The darkest truth about Humpty Dumpty begins not with eggs or castles, but with alcohol. In the late 1600s, Humpty Dumpty wasn't a character at all. It was slang. Specifically for a brutal drink made from ale boiled with brandy. Cheap. Violent. Strong enough to fold a grown man like lawn furniture. Picture Restoration London. The streets are soaked in mud. Horse waste. Spilled beer. And probably 3 diseases science hadn't named yet. Inside taverns. Sailors hunch over cracked wooden tables while pipe smoke hangs in the air thick enough to chew. Serving girls dodge wandering hands while exhausted barkeepers pour steaming alcohol from black iron pots. Then comes the shout. Humpty Dumpty. That meant the drink was ready. A boiling mixture of ale and cheap brandy, ladled into mugs hot enough to burn skin and strong enough to erase dignity. The customers slammed it down anyway. Because this was old London. Therapy didn't exist. People self-medicated with boiling poison and vibes. Within minutes, faces flushed red. Eyes watered. Bodies sagged. By the second or third mug, men stumbled toward the doors, bent over, barely conscious, ready to collapse in gutters beside stray dogs and human misery. Early slang dictionaries documented exactly how the term evolved. Humpty. Dumpy. Humped over. Collapsed. The drink became associated with the people destroyed by it. Short. Squat. Broken figures slumped against tavern walls in the filthiest districts of London. These weren't lovable drunks from sitcoms. These were ruined human beings. The kind of people communities slowly stop trying to save because everyone understands the terrible truth. Sometimes destruction becomes permanent. And Old England understood permanent destruction better than most societies. Because they lived in it every day. The fall no one could fix. When the earliest printed version appeared in 1797, something important was missing. No king. No horses. No royal imagery at all. Instead, the rhyme described 80 men and 80 more. That's 160 people. And none of them could restore Humpty Dumpty to where he was before. That wording matters. Because this wasn't originally a military story. It was a story about helplessness, Imagine the scene. A collapsed drunk lies beneath a low tavern wall where locals usually gathered. His clothes soaked with spilled ale and gutter filth. His breathing wet and shallow. Eyes rolled backward. People gather around him. One grabs his shoulders. Another lifts his legs. More join in. Soon dozens of people strain together, trying to pull this broken man upright. But every time they release him, he collapses again. Like wet cloth. Like dead weight. Like somebody whose soul already left the building 20 minutes ago. And slowly the crowd realizes something horrifying. This man is beyond repair. Not injured. Destroyed. No amount of community effort can restore what vice has hollowed out from the inside. That is the true terror inside Humpty Dumpty. Not falling. Irreversibility. That's what makes the rhyme immortal. Because everybody eventually encounters something they cannot fix. A betrayal. A ruined reputation. An addiction. A shattered mind. A broken family. A trust that never returns. The rhyme survives because it taps directly into humanity's oldest fear. What if some damage never heals? Heavy stuff for something printed beside alphabet songs and wooden toy advertisements. Europe's obsession with irreversible destruction. England wasn't alone. Across Europe, cultures created their own variations of collapse stories. And somehow, every single one sounds like a grim fairy tale written during a nervous breakdown. In Denmark, children sang about Lille Trill. A round figure tumbles and splits apart while people gather around helplessly. In older folklore interpretations, the destruction becomes grotesque. The body bursts open while onlookers stand nearby singing. Which raises an important historical question. Why were old European nursery traditions emotionally insane? Seriously. Every nursery rhyme from that era sounds like it was written by exhausted peasants staring directly into the void. In Germany, another variation appeared. Humpelkan, Pumpelkan. Even the name sounds like somebody falling downstairs carrying groceries. The figure sits high above a gathering before plunging downward in catastrophic collapse. The crowd kneels around the aftermath, praying over destruction they cannot reverse. Again, the same message appears. Some falls cannot be undone. But England's Humpty Dumpty remained uniquely tied to alcohol, vice, and social ruin. That specifically British darkness, ale-soaked gutters, collapsed drunkards. Picture a bunch of William from Brooklyn roaming the streets. Communities watching people rot in public. Other countries imagined mythological tragedy. England basically looked out the tavern window and said, "Yeah, write that down." How a horrifying warning became a children's riddle. By the early 1800s, something strange happened. The rhyme transformed. The original social commentary faded, and people turned Humpty Dumpty into a riddle. What sits on a wall falls, and can never be put back together again. The answer became an egg. Honestly, this may have been the first successful rebranding campaign in human history. Take horrifying, irreversible human collapse and replace it with breakfast. Brilliant. Collections like Gammer-Gurton's Garland helped popularize the egg interpretation around 1810. And once the egg imagery arrived, the symbolism became perfect, fragile, precarious, impossible to restore once broken. The egg stripped away the alcoholism and social decay while preserving the core philosophical horror, destruction without reversal. Children repeated it endlessly without understanding they were echoing centuries-old fears about mortality, addiction, and the limits of human salvation, which honestly explains about 70% of nursery rhymes. They're basically tiny trauma capsules disguised as sing-alongs. The king's men enter the story. The famous line everybody knows today, "All the king's horses and all the king's men," did not exist in the earliest printed version. That part came later. And once again, society layered new anxieties onto the rhyme. Now imagine Britain in the early 1800s. Colonial failures, military disasters, economic panic, political incompetence. Basically, Parliament doing what Parliament does best. Critics began weaponizing the nursery rhyme politically. If even the king's own resources couldn't repair Humpty Dumpty, what good was royal authority? Suddenly, the rhyme became satire. Not just about a broken man, not just about an egg, but about institutional failure, military failure, economic failure, government helplessness. Later variations even added, "Not all the king's money," meaning the criticism expanded beyond soldiers into wealth and power itself. The message became brutal. Authority cannot save everything. And that idea terrified societies built entirely around the illusion of control. Because kings, governments, empires, and institutions all depend on one gigantic lie, that somebody is in charge. Humpty Dumpty quietly whispers the opposite. Sometimes nobody can fix the damage, not even power. Especially not power. The real meaning. Ironically, the egg version may actually be the most honest interpretation of all, because eggs exist to break. That's their purpose. Once cracked, they transform or decay. They do not return to what they were before. That's the hidden truth inside Humpty Dumpty. Not just fragility, finality, a reputation destroyed by scandal, a mind shattered by trauma, a relationship poisoned by betrayal, a society collapsing under its own corruption. Some fractures cannot be undone. And deep down, every human being knows it. That's why the rhyme survives. Because every person eventually understands what Humpty Dumpty really is. He's us. Perched precariously on temporary walls, pretending stability lasts forever. And when the fall comes, no cavalry arrives. No authority saves us. No king's men fix the damage. The nursery rhyme endured because it quietly tells the truth. Most societies spend their entire existence trying to deny. Some things break permanently. And power has limits. Humpty Dumpty was never just an egg. He was a warning. A symbol of collapse. A reminder that human beings love, pretending everything can be repaired. If enough powerful people show up with enough, money, soldiers, or speeches. But history says otherwise. Sometimes the wall wins. Sometimes gravity wins. Sometimes the fracture becomes the story. And maybe that's why the rhyme still unsettles people centuries later. Because underneath the rhythm and repetition sits a terrifying realization. The king's horses and men were never coming to save us. They never could. If you enjoyed today's cheerful descent into nursery rhyme existentialism, make sure to like, subscribe, and enter the Pizzaverse Social Club, where childhood memories come to die, under historical analysis and sarcastic commentary. More documentaries, more hidden folklore, more mobsters, fairy tales, psychological breakdowns, internet disasters, and historical nightmares wrapped in cinematic narration. Because at the Pizzaverse, we don't rewrite history. We excavate it. Thank you for watching another Pizzaverse Studios documentary. And remember, if a nursery rhyme sounds suspiciously cheerful while describing irreversible destruction, there's about a 90% chance British society wrote it during an economic collapse while drinking boiling alcohol in a plague alley. See you at the next one.
Here is Giacomo Amato revealing his crew from his time as a self-made street boss in the streets of New York City.
Hello, friends and non-friends, because I already had made new connection in East New York. I met this Colombian guy that he was doing, dealing cocaine. I met Vito, the bouncer, that worked in the discotheques. Then I met Rico, the plumber. He had a plumber business. I had Johnny, the butcher. And what else I had? Okay, then I had the Irish guys from Glendale. Billy the Kid, Tommy the Thief, and Jimmy the Dirty Fighter. Because when he fight dirty. He buy, scratch, everything. And I'm missing somebody right now off my head. But as I'm going on, I'm going to be talking.
Hello friends, it's me Giacomo at Giacomo A on the YouTube. So anyway, when I am not on the Facebook groups begging for views, subs, and people to buy my books, I am here with you, begging with you to buy my books, because JJ Lambon and Elisa Pizza Piescia, Pizzitola, damaged my books. Bambi Palermo did too. So anyways, buy the books, please. I am begging.
Hello friends, join me tonight on my YouTube channel at Giacomo A to hear my story about the underworld 80s mobsters.
A good father to sons and the daughters